Lines and planes. All right, so a few more new definitions that we're going to talk about with this. Skew lines are lines that do not intersect and are not parallel. So you should be familiar with parallel lines. Parallel lines was actually our next definition here. Lines that do not intersect, but they are coplanar. And we're also going to talk about parallel planes, two planes that do not intersect. Okay, so two planes, you can think of two planes would be like two walls on opposite sides of the room. You could also think about the floor and the ceiling. Those would be two parallel planes. So in this picture, it's a little bit fuzzy, but lines M and N, so here we have two lines. Here's our two lines M and N. Those would be examples of parallel lines. They're running the same direction. They're running the same direction. They're never, ever going to touch. So those would be an example of parallel lines, okay? And we often see symbols like this. I'm going to kind of highlight it, but often we see these symbols with arrows. It's a little bit blurry, but you see arrows that go through lines. That signifies that they are parallel. So that means that the lines are parallel. You'll also see, and this is blurry over here, so I'm going to rewrite it, M, and you'll see this symbol, two bars between them like this. M is parallel to N. That also means it's a symbol that means that they are parallel to each other. M and K are skew lines. So you got to kind of imagine that those two lines are running, they're not touching each other, running different directions, and they're not touching each other, so they're not going to intersect. All right, planes T and U are parallel planes. And a lot of the times, lines are going to be represented by lowercase letters, and planes are going to be represented by capital letters. So once again, think of that as like a ceiling in a room and a floor. Lines K and N are intersecting lines, and you can see that because we have a dot right here. It's a little bit fuzzy, but once again, you've got a dot right there. And there is a plane not shown that does contain those lines. Okay, so moving on here. Example 1, identify the following using the figure shown. So we're looking over here at this box to the right. So a line or lines parallel to CD. Okay, so let's highlight what we're looking at. So we're looking at this right here. And it's got to contain point A. So it's got to be parallel. So it's got to run the same direction, okay? All right, so it's got to contain point A. So obviously AB, and we draw the line underneath, okay, because that's the proper way to draw that. And that is the only line I see that contains point A. Okay, now obviously there are other lines that are parallel to CD, but that's the only one that contains point A, okay? That's the only one that contains point A that is also parallel, okay? HG is parallel to CD, but it doesn't contain A, okay? And then EF is parallel, but it doesn't contain A, okay? So that's our only answer for that one. Okay, so moving on, all right, I'm going to get rid of this for now. Oops. Okay, lines skew to CD. So let's go back and we'll highlight this again. Lines skew to CD and it contains point A. Okay, so how about this one? Because it's running a different direction and it's not going to touch. So we would say line AG. We wouldn't say AB because it's parallel. Skew means it's not going to be parallel. We could also say AH. Oh, let's do the highlighter. AH, because it's running a different direction and it's not going to run into CD. And we would, like I said, wouldn't say AB because that would be parallel, and we can't say AD because that would intersect, okay? We don't want to say AD because AD would run into it, okay? And then AB is going to be parallel, so the red ones we don't want to use. And that's it. Those are the only lines using those, okay? All right, now lines perpendicular to CD. Okay, so once again, we're looking at CD here and contains point A. So now it has to make a 90-degree angle. So we want to make that 90-degree angle. So we would say AD. AD would run into it. Okay, and then the last one here. All right, let's get rid of this. Okay. Planes parallel to plane EFG. So EFG is this plane here at the bottom, basically the bottom of our box, and contains point A. So basically point A, we're looking at the top of our box. Now, we can name that a lot of ways, but when you name a plane, you want to use 3 letters, okay? So we would say plane. We could just say A, B, C. Okay, so any of those 3 letters in the top of the plane. Okay, so a transversal is a line that intersects 2 or more coplanar lines at different points. Okay, so these lines right here, the types of angles that we're going to form, super, super important. And this is what your assignment is really going to concentrate. So it's super important to know these types of angles. So the first one here, angles 2 and 6, is just what we just named them here. These are called corresponding. And think of it like this. These are like in the same spot, okay? This line is your transversal, okay? So these lines are these angles are kind of like in the same spot, okay? If I were to kind of like make a cut right here and lay these on top of each other, these are like in the same spot. It's like this is kind of on top of this line and this is on top of this line, okay? So these are corresponding angles. They correspond to each other, okay? I could also say, if I got rid of this, I could also say that like this angle and this angle are corresponding because they're both on top of the line and they're both on the left side. Those would be corresponding angles, okay? So it doesn't matter. It's kind of like they're in the same position is what we're saying, okay? So I could also say this angle and this angle are corresponding because they're both on the left and they're both on the bottom. They correspond to each other, okay? We'll do one more because there's like 4 pairs of corresponding angles. Oops, I meant to do my eraser. Okay, so I could also say that this angle here and this angle here are corresponding because they're both on the right and they're both on the bottom, okay? They're both on the bottom of the line and they're both on the right. So those could be corresponding angles as well. Okay, so moving on, the next set of angles, these are called alternate interior because these are inside the 2 lines. Notice they're inside, okay? But then they are on alternate sides of the blue line, okay? They're inside the red lines, but they're on alternate sides of the blue line. That's why they're called alternate interior angles, okay? So with that being said, what I'm getting ready to mark in yellow, these are also alternate interior angles. So we've got 2 sets. You can mark 2 sets of alternate interior angles, okay? All right. We also have alternate exterior angles, okay? Because we have they're on the outside of the red line, and they're on alternate sides of the blue line. Okay, so notice they're on the exterior sides of the red line, but they're on alternate sides of the red line. Now, with that being said, what I'm getting ready to mark in yellow, the yellow angles that I just marked, those are also alternate exterior angles, because those yellow angles, those are outside, exterior of the red lines, and they're on alternate sides of the blue line. And then our last set of angles, these are called same side interior. Okay, because these are inside the red lines, they're inside, and they are same side, so they're inside the red lines and they're on the same side of the blue line. Okay, same side of the red line and inside the red lines. Okay, so with that being said, these are also same side interior. Okay, all right, so now let's list all the corresponding angles in our picture down here in example 2. So corresponding angles would be angles 1 and 5, okay, because those are like angle 1 and 5, they're both to the left here. They're like to the left of the lines there, and they're like on top of that line, okay? Let me get rid of that so we're not confusing ourselves with future problems. All right. More examples of corresponding angles, because we have more, would be angles 2 and 6. Okay. Angles 3. So think about what would be corresponding to angle 3. Hopefully you said angle 7. And what would be corresponding to angle 4? Hopefully you said angle 8. So those are our pairs of corresponding. Alternate interior. So remember, they're inside. They're going to be inside these. Okay? They got to be inside those. So like angle 2 and 7. Because they got to be alternate sides of the transversal. And then angles 4 and 5. Okay? Alternate exterior, so now they have to be outside those green lines. So angles 1 and 8, and then angles 3 and 6. Okay, then same side interior, so now we got to be inside the green lines, and then same side of the, like now they got to be same side of the green line again. So it would be angles 2 and 5, and then 4 and 7. Okay, so it's just all about learning where these angles are and what the names of them are. So that's the key to today's notes.